Welcome back. All right, so continuing my look at prospects for this year's NHL entry draft, I want to talk about Justin Carbonneau today. So I've been going through the list in a certain order. Basically, Elite Prospects has the average of where everybody is in draft rankings. And with Carbonneau, I'm going a little bit off script, so to speak. I'm going a little bit outside of that. In that Carbonneau, there's very differing opinions on where he's going to be taken this year. And just look at the rankings. Elite Prospects has him at 11th. Hockey Prospect has him 30th on their list. So 19-point difference between the two. Bob McKenzie has him 16th. Craig Button has him at 14th. NHL Central Scouting ranked him 16th amongst North American skaters. So it is a very different opinion between whichever list that you trust and others. So he is a right winger. That's one thing to keep in mind. He's not a center, so probably doesn't go higher up. If he was a center, he probably would go higher. He's 6'1", which is 185 centimeters for those who speak metric. 192 pounds, 87 kilos for those who live in the city of metric keeping ability. So playing for the Armada, both last year and this year, you can see the progression in his totals. Last year, 68 games, 31 goals, 28 assists, 59 points. This year, 62 games, 46 goals, 43 assists, 89 points. So he's been very good in the queue. And then it becomes a matter of opinion on how well he could play in the National Hockey League and how much his skill will translate to the National Hockey League. It sounds like he got better as the season went along and his game became more translatable to the National Hockey League, a term that gets used a lot. And basically it just means because you're really good at juniors and scoring in juniors does not mean that that's going to translate to the NHL game necessarily. But his goal scoring, he is able to find the net from all angles. He's one of these guys who will find the net as he's falling down. He'll find the net from a sharp angle. He'll find it through a crowd. And that is definitely something that teams will notice. Teams that need goal scorers may very well take a look at Carbonneau and say, this could be a really good scoring winger for us. One team I don't have on the board at this time, Vancouver still has their 15th pick. Carbonneau is a winger, and I know they want a center, but I think as a goal scorer, this could be a good pickup, especially if you're losing Brock Besser. Now, he's better with the puck than without, and this is where I feel like the game has changed, where a guy who is really good offensively, you're not worried about the defensive side so much. He'll put the puck in the net. In today's game, you have to be good with or without the puck, and if there's a notable difference between with the puck than without, it is going to cause you to fall in the draft. He creates space, though, on rush opportunities, so he's very good at not just getting that rush, but getting that separation, getting lanes, and as I said, he's very creative at getting to the net when he's done that as well. He's above average when it comes to skating, but not elite, which means he's a good skater. I think that the whole skating conversation is still talked about when you're in the National Hockey League, but nowhere near as much as it's talked about with scouts, right? I think this is where you're trying to make that differentiate between very similar players. And you might say, well, these guys are similar, but this one's a little bit better as a skater, so I rank him a little bit higher. Whereas in the NHL, I don't feel like that comes into it nearly as much. So his decision-making issues are a concern. This is where you ask yourself, how coachable is the player? Is this somebody that you feel like your scouts and your trainers could talk him through and get him to improve with? The interesting part being with the last name Carbonneau, well, I remember Guy Carbonneau, and he wasn't fantastic offensively, but defensively, one of the best defensive forwards I've ever seen in the game. So the decision-making issues are something to keep an eye on. He's very likely going to need a couple of years before he's going to make it into the NHL. He does have top six potential in his game, but he's going to need to clean up his game. The other issue might be, and this might be part of the reason why we have this huge disparity between elite prospects and hockey prospect here, is can he overcome that defensive issue, the issues without the puck? Because if you're not great without the puck, you may not get the top 6 minutes, but you may not play the kind of game that's necessary to be a bottom six forward in the National Hockey League, where you kind of have to be good on both sides of the puck. So this is one of those things where it's boom or bust, right? And so my guess is elite prospects, very high on the idea of what he's going to be able to do offensively. Hockey prospect, probably a little bit cooler on the player because they see those flaws in his game. Now, I wanted to highlight teams that have multiple first-round draft picks outside the top 10. It begins with Pittsburgh at 11 and 12. I do think that when a team has multiple picks in a row, one of those is probably going to be safe, and one of those might be seen a little bit more as a reach, a little more risk. So could Pittsburgh take him at 12 or 11 with the idea that the other pick that they're going to take might be more of a safe pick? Montreal has 16 and 17. I obviously would love to see a player out of the queue play for Montreal. 14 and 20 both belong to Columbus, and 22 and 31 belong to Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is looking to add more goals. I know they're looking to add a center with that number 6 pick, but they have 22 and 31 as well. He's not going to slide to 31. Could he still be available at 22? Look, with the mock drafts that I've seen and just how wildly different they are from one another, sure, he could. He could be available later than we think. He could be a player that slides a little bit, or maybe Pittsburgh goes up at number 11 and goes, yeah, we're going to pick this guy, and maybe the offense will be enough. Maybe they feel like they can coach around some of the other things or improve those other parts of his game. One of the issues is that, of course, you're dealing with 18-year-olds, so some of these players are going to overcome their flaws and others aren't, and that's where scouts should be deciding, okay, we think, and this is where interviews, I think, help as well. Some guys interview really, really well, and I think that's probably part of it, is they're willing to say, look, I'm not the greatest player in the world, but I'm willing to take my strengths, bring them to the organization, and work on my weaknesses as well. So there you go. But let me know your thoughts. Where do you think Carbonneau goes in the draft? Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.